Good morning on this Thursday, March 11th, 2021. Let it be known, we are going to talk about the infant mortality rate in Black women. And we're going to talk about that with two doulas. What is a doula? Maybe some of you don't know. You'll find out shortly. But first, let's bring on our president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Dr. Chavis, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you. I had been on mute, but I would just say good morning to you, Stacey Brown, and to let it be known. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the Black Press of America, we're excited because next week will be the 2021 Black Press Week. And we want everybody to go to the website and register for Black Press Week. We're going to have an amazing program, workshops. Also, we're giving out our Newsmaker of the Year award to the Honorable Jim Clyburn, the Majority Whip of the Congress of the United States, as well as to the family of George Floyd. You know that they're still picking jurors in the trial of the police officer who murdered George Floyd in Minneapolis. And so that is underway. So it's very timely that the Black press is going to salute the family of George Floyd. And we thank the NNPA Fund, the National Newspaper Publishers Association Fund. This is our 501c3. They're sponsoring the 2021 Black Press Week. Shout out to our chair, Karen Carter Richards, and to all of the members of our board of directors as we prepare now to celebrate Black Press Week 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can register, as Dr. Chavis said, free of charge. virtualnnpa2021.com. So please register and join us. Now, Dr. Chavis, the headlines. And I tell you what, these are the headlines that we don't enjoy at all. The first, Texas school and law enforcement officials have launched investigations after video surfaced showing a 13-year-old allegedly being bullied by classmates during a sleepover in a home in Plano, Texas. To call it bullying minimizes the gravity and the horror of this attack, said Kim Cole, the attorney representing Summer Smith and her son, Samarian Humphrey, an 8th grader at Haggard Middle School. A fellow student befriended Samarian and invited him to a sleepover that took place on the weekend of February 12th. Smith says that her son didn't know beforehand that some boys who had harassed him at school would be at the sleepover. He was called slurs, racial slurs, and made to drink what appeared to be urine and shot with BB guns. It was all pre-calculated and racially motivated. Samarian has been harassed while he was on the football team, and the harassment continued. There is a GoFundMe page for Samarian that has raised nearly $100,000. And again, racism is taught, Dr. Chavis. It's not.
That's right. Nobody, you're right, Stacey. No one is born a racist, but it begins very early in life. Racism and white supremacy are not just for older people, it's for all ages. And that's what we have to work on to rid our society of all the tenets of systemic racism, systemic white supremacy, the institutionalization of it. So we'll see how the authorities in Texas handle this yet another case.
Yeah, and still another disturbing story that mainstream media is doing very little, if any, coverage on. And I want to show you a picture of the perpetrator. Carla Lassiter, a white Arkansas elementary school teacher, is accused of making a 5-year-old Black kindergarten student unclog a toilet full of feces with his bare hands. Carla Lassiter was placed on administrative leave after she was accused of making the student unclog the toilet in an incident that occurred in the Pulaski County Special School District. She works for Crystal Hill Elementary School, which is located in North Little Rock, Arkansas. The child's mother said her son told her that his teacher made him clean out a toilet with his hands because he had used too much toilet paper. She said the teacher apologized and said her son was moved to a different class. The school district said in a statement that it is actively investigating the allegation. Employees across the district work hard every day to create an environment where students feel safe and protected, the statement said. With his future mental health in mind, the family also has established a GoFundMe page titled Justice for Ashton. Again, Dr. Chavis.
Well, again, whether in Texas, whether in Arkansas, I think Malcolm X had it right. The South, when it comes to race, the South, when it comes to white supremacy, is anything south of the Canadian border. So the whole country is up south and down south when it comes to racism. And no matter what state, the black press, we have to continue to report these incidents, give coverage to them, and hopefully that parents and everybody in our community will be vigilant. We cannot tolerate any of these incidents of racial motivated violence, racial motivated prejudice, and discrimination against our children. We must protect our children more than anyone else. If we don't stand up and fight for the rights of our children, no one else will. But you know, this comes on the heels of yesterday, another major headline. Finally, the Congress has passed, both the House and the Senate have agreed on the bill, the 1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. And of course, President Biden is expected to sign the bill no later than tomorrow, Stacey.
Yep, absolutely. And just one more time, I want to put this teacher's photo up because, as you said before, Dr. Chavis, people need to see with their own eyes these. You got to call it what it is. That's racist in the worst way, because the victim here is a 5-year-old. It doesn't get too much more innocent than a 5-year-old for what she did. Not only should she be, should that job be taken away from her, but I suggest some sort of jail time for that. Come on, it's absolutely.
Well, again, Tracy, you know, we shouldn't be shocked that this thing's going on until America deals with this race problem. These incidents are going to continue. And that is why I'm going to go back now to the stimulus bill that was passed, the American Rescue Plan, the child credit for Black families and all families that have children. Make sure you don't miss out on getting your tax credit for every child in the family. This is so important. And we know a number of African-American families have multiple children. Even if you're a single parent, have multiple children, you qualify for this tax credit. That's in the billions of dollars, a part of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. So I want everybody to be aware of this legislation as the president prepares to sign it and the impact it will have. There are estimates, Stacey, that child poverty can be cut in half just with this one piece of legislation. But it's going to require all of us to be knowledgeable in what we need to do to make sure you not only get the $1,400 check, but the other benefits of the American Rescue Plan. African Americans must be vigilant, we must be aware, and we must know how to respond to the opportunities, including for Black-owned businesses, including owners of Black media companies like the Black Press of America. There are PPP and other available resources to sustain the African American owned businesses as well.
Yeah, and for everyone, that $1.9 trillion package includes, as Dr. Chavis mentioned, the child tax credit will be paid now in monthly installments to families with small children, with children under the age of 17. And the rescue package, unlike the previous stimuluses, now adult dependents will also receive the $1,400. So a family of 4, for instance, will receive $5,600 if they make jointly under $150,000 a year. And families of 5 will get up to $7,000 plus the child tax credit. House Majority Whip James Clyburn, who you mentioned earlier, called it the most transformational piece of legislation he's ever seen. So that says a whole lot right there. And Barack Obama also called it the same.
We're saluting the Honorable Congressman James E. Clyburn next week at Black Press Week. So we really thank him for his leadership. We thank Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. We thank Senate Majority Leader Schumer, all the members of the Congressional Black Caucus. I mean, on both sides of the aisle, on both sides of the House, this bill is passed. But I just want to mention, just to correct myself, no Republicans voted for this bill, particularly on the Senate side. That's a travesty that Republicans would try to deny the American people, would deny particularly Black Americans, this opportunity to get relief. It's been a year now, Stacey, since the COVID-19 pandemic. It has been
Yep.
devastating in our community, and it's timely that the Biden-Harris administration now is fulfilling their promise to rescue and to bring remedy to all of those who have been devastated by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yep. And moving on, Dr. Chavis, Black moms are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy or childbirth related causes than white mothers. And roughly 2/3 of maternal deaths in the U.S. are preventable. A childbirth doula is a person experienced in childbirth who provides advice, information, emotional support, and physical comfort to a mother before, during, and immediately after childbirth. Joining us now are two doulas who are fighting the infant mortality crisis, Ricky Jenkins and Kaylee Mancher of Heart and Soul Collective in Henderson, Nevada. Good morning. You guys, once you come off mute.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Let It Be Known, and thank you for your leadership on this serious issue. African American women have one of the highest rates of infant mortality, not just in the United States, but in the world. So your good work is saving lives and protecting the newborn, those who are getting ready to be born, and also protecting these mothers who need all the care and help to make sure that they deliver their children safely and healthy.
Yeah, so we got to start. We'll go, Ricky, then Kaylee, you could respond as well. Tell us a little bit about what the importance of a doula.
Yeah, so the importance of a doula is to have that full support. That's someone who is non-biased or non-judgmental. It is someone who accompanies pregnant folks and families throughout the whole entire pregnancy experience. So that means offering guidance, offering evidence-based information, making sure that they are aware of their choices that they may have in childbirth and throughout pregnancy, and then full-on support throughout their entire labor and birth, and then also postpartum when they have the baby. So offering continuous postpartum support that may look like housekeeping, baby care, and just all around pretty much centering the family and what the family needs.
Yeah, and Kaylee, let me ask you, I know that particularly African-American mothers have a very difficult time with their doctors. They have doctors tend to overlook what they have to say. Where does a doula, now there are different kinds of doulas, right? So tell us a little bit about that, and tell us, where does the doula come in when the doctor, when the mother is not, let's say, gelling with the doctor?
Yeah, so I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and a full spectrum doula, and there's a lot of advocacy in both of those roles. Advocacy is definitely a part of birth. And so when we're talking about the medical system and medical racism, we know that's rooted in the history of gynecology. And so multiple studies, even as recent as this year, have shown that medical professionals still have a bias on their perception of pain in relation to skin color. So the darker the skin, the less pain a person feels, which we know is not rooted in any biological or scientific truth. And so when we consider the way that medical racism has dictated care, a large part of the doula's role is anti-racism and an understanding of how that plays out in a room where you have a vulnerable person in labor. And so as a full spectrum doula, I work with folks from preconception, and that can be folks that are struggling with infertility or who are trying to conceive, all the way through postpartum and the spectrum of experiences within that. So that can be infant loss, abortion, miscarriage, that is pregnancy. That for me, having a background in mental health definitely translates to how do we support people in advocating for themselves before they even need to. And so the question about what happens if a client's not gelling with their provider, you always have options. And, you know, that's a privilege to say, because in some communities there aren't a lot of options. when we look at providers of color, specifically if we're talking about midwives, we know that less than 2% of the United States midwives are Black identified. And so that has a lot to do with the way that granny midwives were pushed out of childbirth and pregnancy care in the United States when it became medicalized. And so oftentimes I talk to my clients about what their priorities are, what their concerns are, the ways they would like me to advocate for them, because as a doula, I don't take away their voice. I want to amplify their voice. I want to support them in feeling safe in speaking on what they need. And so if you're not gelling with a provider, we definitely have to talk about getting more informed care, more consensual care, more respectful care, and just knowing that, you know, sometimes a provider that other people might enjoy might not be a competent provider for you, or that it's always okay to say no to anything and everything. It's always okay to put space in between the decisions that you make.
Yeah. And Ricky, talk about the importance of having doctors who look like you.
Yeah, of course, culturally, we know what families need, but also it's important to highlight that in the medical system, it's something that is taught. And so even when we do have providers that look like us, we still have to kind of go through how birth is highly medicalized. And so kind of talking with each provider. So it comes down to knowledge, and it comes down to how the doctor is going to handle the patient, and if the doctor is going to even listen to the patient. That's what matters the most to me when it comes to advising my clients on, you know, how to pick a supportive provider, you know, what signs or red flags come up that may show that the provider is not going to necessarily support their desires for their birth.
Yeah, I want to say good morning to Lynn Spivey, Annette Phillips, Tawana Smith. Good morning, Tawana, and Michelle Madison as well, Mark Campbell, and all who are watching. And of course, our executive administrator, Claudette Perry. Dr. Chavis, I'm going to throw it over to you because they are doing some wonderful work. And it's really important for Black women, this type of work. Dr. Chavis, let me throw it to you.
Thank you. Ricky and Kelly, how did you come up with the name Heart and Soul? And how can our listeners, particularly African-American women who are mothers or potential mothers, how can they get in touch with Heart and Soul? Tell us about the background, the evolution of your business.
Go ahead, Kaylee. I'll let you answer that one.
Well, I am definitely honored to work in partnership with Ricky. I have owned a business for the past 4 years where I've provided therapy services and birth work, as well as other wellness services, including yoga. And I have dreamed of creating a collective for quite a long time. I knew that I wanted to do that with a really special person or special people in general within my community that had similar values. As a Latinx identified individual, I knew that I wanted to work specifically with Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And so there came an opportunity where Ricky and I came together and said, it's time. There's a need within our community. And so Heart and Soul was created out of a necessity within the Las Vegas Valley to create a safe space for folks of color and marginalized identities to come and participate in support groups, in wellness services, and therapy, and childbirth education. So we're a comprehensive wellness center. And with that being said, we were brainstorming the name, and you know, Heart and Soul, SOUL, was definitely what we put into our work. But when we were talking about what our name meant to us, soul is in Spanish means sun, and we wanted to incorporate the elements of our ancestral wisdom and indigenous wisdoms. I often talk about decolonizing spaces and decolonizing our medicines. And so our name really represents our commitment to integrating that ancestral wisdom and bringing into this space an element of culture that I think is missing in a lot of spaces. And respecting that everybody comes with different identities, but that they are all welcome in our space. And so I'm really excited because we do offer quite a bit of services, and we're looking to continue doing even more than we're doing now.
Well, that's great. That's great. You know, you gave a very good anthropological answer to that question, and we salute you. Now we know the significance of heart and soul, SOL, and the cultural convergence between African Americans and Latinx. Certainly, we go way back that we know there's African origins to both. And I think that being in a place like Henderson, in Nevada, you know, outside of Las Vegas, tell us how the business is going. What's been the responsiveness of African American Latinx women who need your services?
Yeah, we've had a lot of community support, which I was really excited about. And we, of course, we opened in the middle of the pandemic, but the response was really strong. Everyone's seen the significance of it. Our grand opening was really beautiful. We had a lot of blessings and people showing up for us. We have people, you know, wanting to come to the space. Every month we have a doula circle of color, so that, you know, all birth workers can come and gather, and making sure that they too have that support, because that's one of the most important things about maintaining doula work and being able to show up for our clients, is having that support for ourselves. And so I'm really excited that we can be that space of support for all the birth workers in the community.
Great. Stacey, I yield back to you.
Yeah, so Ricky and Kaylee, one of our viewers, and I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, so forgive me, Calinthia Horde. She says most physicians just don't listen. And she also, before you respond to that, she also says, my daughter wants to be a doula. I believe it's a worthy profession and great work. So tackle the first part. Maybe Ricky, you can tackle that part about most physicians don't listen. And then you can explain how does one become a doula?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to say because I believe that all healthcare professionals in general want the best outcome. And especially now that they know the maternal mortality rate, they kind of set in place procedures that they believe is preventative. And sometimes that doesn't always go with what the patient wants. And ultimately, I feel like it should be a family-centered care versus, you know, me telling you the best way, you know. And sometimes we weaponize like, oh, Black mothers are dying. You need to do this thing. And it's like, no, we need to listen to our clients. We need to listen to our patients and hear what they're saying to us. So if that means, hey, I'm in pain, we need to listen. Or, hey, you know, my feet are swelling. We need to listen and not dismiss it as a regular pregnancy symptom. Overall, yes, everyone needs to listen because sometimes we catch things, you know, because we, as doulas, we actually see our clients more often than they are seeing their doctors. And so we're kind of put in an advantage to say, hey, you know, at your next doctor's appointment, ask for this. And then speaking on becoming a doula, there are many ways. There are internship options to where you can intern underneath another doula, or there are organizations to where you can go and get in-person training and now virtual training and receive certificates of completion. So there's several ways. So I always say, find the organization that resonates with what you're trying to do and make sure that it's a representative of what you set out your doula work to be.
Yeah. And Kaylee, Mark Campbell, one of our viewers, says that he's having grandchildren born in this era of racism. So for him, this is very informative. What else can you tell mothers, families, not just mothers, but families about childbirth and what they should expect? And maybe someone's going through it for the first time. What should they look for, especially as if they're going to go into a hospital, whether they're going to do it at home? Many are doing it at home now. What advice? What's the primary advice you give?
Oftentimes we talk about providers doing better, and in an ideal world, they would. In the state of California, they mandated perinatal mood and anxiety disorder screening for all professionals that work with pregnant folks. So that's a start. And the training they mandated was implicit bias training. So, that's awesome, but that's one state, and that doesn't cure the problem. And so when we're talking about birth work in general, what we're really talking about is lifelong care. So, we've mentioned the maternal mortality rate, but infants are dying at a much larger rate when we're talking about within the Black and Latinx community, up to 3 to 4 times as high for infants than non-Hispanic white infants. And so we're talking about prolonged family care. So in response to the viewer that asked that question, the best thing we can do is lean into our community, have community members be informed. So when we're talking about how to prepare somebody for labor, that might be one day of their life. But what happens after that? What happens when they go home? We know that within communities of color, postpartum depression and anxiety is much higher than the white population, and predominantly due to systemic racism. We know that regardless of socioeconomic status, we have like Serena Williams who almost died, Beyonce who almost died. And so it doesn't matter who you are. It's more important to have community to say, hey, this isn't right, or hey, I think you're struggling. I think this is challenging. How can we wrap around you and love on you and support you? And so it's our job as community members to fill that gap in, because community has always been the preventative measure, the first line of defense within communities of color.
Our producer starts the hashtag listen to Black women. And Dr. Chavis, so all month long, we've been having some wonderful Black women of all ages on when you think about it, talking about important issues affecting not just Black women, but, whatever affects the Black woman affects the Black man and affects everyone around the globe. Dr. Chavis, I'm going to throw it to you for your last thoughts.
Yes, I just want Ricky and Callie once again to give out the website. There's so many people responding to the interview this morning. How can they get in touch with Heart and Soul? What's your website, and how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook and Instagram, Heart and Soul Collective, and soul is spelled SOL. And you can reach out to us there and ask any questions if you all have further questions to ask both of us afterwards.
Very good. Salute to both of you, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely. And each day we do a shout out to a Black woman during Women's History Month. And today is Jordan Woods. Why Jordan Woods? Well, I'm going to tell you why. She's an American model and social media star, better known as the former best friend of Kylie Jenner, the Kardashians, right? Jordan is one of the most sought after plus size models in the United States and often talks about body positivity and self-acceptance. She has modeled for brands like Vogue and Maine Addicts. To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Jordan Woods, but here's the reason we're really shouting out this young Black woman. She has endured the wrath of the Kardashian family, survived the hex, if you will. And really, there's no doubt they tried to break or even destroy Jordan. But that young woman has not only survived, but her career has thrived. Unlike many other ex-friends, ex-acquaintances, ex-husbands, and ex-associates of the Kardashians, she dusted herself off like many, many other Black women do. She showed that she was not going to be known just as a fodder for keeping up with the Kardashians. Like many other Black women, she faced that adversity with power, determination, and a will to win. Well, today we say she won. Hats off to Jordan Woods. Let it be known, a successful Black woman is one who has built a firm foundation from the bricks and stones others have thrown at her. We will see you tomorrow.